Welcome to this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on theory and methods, looking at practical, ethical and theoretical issues in research. What are practical, ethical and theoretical issues in research? They are the different considerations that sociologists have to take into account when selecting the topic to research and the method to use. Practical issues focus more on the logistics of picking a topic or selecting a research method. Issues such as finance, time, access to participants and the opportunities to conduct the research. Ethical issues are the moral and ethical considerations a researcher must make before choosing a topic or conducting research. These are usually informed by the British Sociological Association and include protecting participants from harm, informed consent, and ensuring sensitive materials are kept in accordance with relevant legislation. Theoretical considerations include the methodological and theoretical preferences of the researcher to the topic and the method, and we are going to look at these different considerations in detail in this video. But we'll start with practical issues. One of the primary concerns for researchers is how they are going to fund their research. Sociologists can approach a number of different institutions in order to obtain funding, but each of these has their own agenda behind granting funds, which will influence the researcher's choice of topic and method. Governments, businesses, charities and universities all grant funds for sociological research, but they may place stipulations on the type of research that is conducted. For example, governments prefer large-scale data that addresses social trends, and so researchers may be forced to use quantitative methods, whilst universities will look for research that broadens their knowledge base in the area of their specialism, potentially influencing a researcher's choice of topic. A second practical issue is access to participants. Now this influences both the choice of method and the topic chosen, as some groups may be more difficult to research. This could limit the scale of the research being conducted, or whether or not the research can take place at all. Research with children also has different stipulations to research with adults, which could influence the scale of the research or the types of topics that children can be involved in. A third consideration is the impact of the research. Will the research topic provide a new insight into how we see society, or will it concentrate on replicating existing research? With thousands of research projects approved each year, sociologists must consider how the aims of their topic will advance our understanding of society. A fourth consideration is the opportunity to conduct the research. Some sociologists find themselves with a perfect opportunity to conduct research in their chosen field, such as Mac and Guile, who worked as a teacher whilst conducting research into education. For others, it might not be possible to conduct the research because the opportunities might not be available, such as research in past events if there are no records or personal documents available from that time or event. Further practical issues are time. How long will the research take to conduct? Would the researcher need to do additional preparation, such as training or establishing a cover if doing a covert observation? How long will the data take to collect and interpret? Is the topic one that might take years to conclude, such as a study of a cohort in a school from year 7 through to year 11? And linked to time is cost. How much will the research cost? Will specialist equipment be required? Will the researcher need to hire additional research staff, for example in the case of structured interviews? Or in the case of unstructured interviews, will there be any hidden costs such as additional training, expenses, accommodation? Finally, participants. Not just gaining access to them, but what sampling methods might be best utilised. Will we need to gain permission from gatekeepers such as head teachers or social workers in order to speak to subjects? These are the issues that the researcher must take into account before planning their research, as often these questions will be asked when they are submitting applications for funding. Sociologists need to submit their research proposals to ethics committees in various institutions. Now these work on the guidelines of the British Sociological Association to ensure that research is being conducted in a moral and ethical manner. The first of these considerations is data security. In a society where data is as valuable as an individual's identity, safeguarding data using relevant procedures, usually GDPR, is essential, as researchers could be fined if data is left unsecured. Furthermore, confidentiality of participants is an issue closely linked to data security, as researchers will look to offer participants anonymity to allow them to disclose confidential information about themselves or others. Granting anonymity means making sure that no details about the person, Their appearance, their age, their name can be easily identified by people who they know that might read the research. This allows them to be more honest in their responses, knowing they would be free of any form of sanctions. Other ethical issues include deception. Now, whilst it's sometimes necessary to deceive participants about the purposes of the research, or even if they're being researched, these decisions must be made with the approval of an ethics committee. People may incriminate themselves or be misrepresented if they believe they are taking part in another form of research or unaware they're being researched at all. And researchers need to consider this carefully as to whether or not it is necessary to do so. Research participants should also be able to consent and know what the purpose of their research is. With some methods, such as questionnaires and interviews, this is more straightforward than other methods such as field experiments or covert observations. And finally, it is the duty of the researcher to ensure that no physical or psychological harm comes to the research subjects, themselves, or others involved in the research. This is particularly relevant when dealing with sensitive topics such as domestic violence or researching criminal activities. Now, theoretical issues often revolve around the sociologist's values. These values are different from the norms and values we discuss when we're talking about socialization, and we've put together a separate video on the role of values in research that goes into a little bit more depth. But a sociologist's theoretical perspective can influence both the topic and the methodology that they use. Some structural theorists prefer to use quantitative methods to get a large-scale view of society, whereas our social action theorists would prefer smaller-scale methods that produce qualitative data that discloses meanings and motivations. Other theoretical issues include the purpose of the research. Research that informs social policy tends to be more quantitative in nature, whilst much contemporary sociology is conducted on a smaller scale, looking for qualitative data that will increase our knowledge of the diverse range of individuals in contemporary society. Methodological preferences is another key factor. Is the researcher looking to use positivist methods that generate quantitative data, or interpretivist methods or ethnographic methods that require interpretation of qualitative data? These all influence the choice of method and in many cases the topic area being studied. We've discussed how the data required may influence the choice of method and the scale of the research. Quantitative methods such as structured interviews or official statistics may be preferred by some, whilst other sociologists would look to qualitative methods such as observations and unstructured interviews in their research. Reliability and validity are other theoretical concerns. For positivists, reliability, the ability to replicate research and obtain similar results, is important as it is a feature of scientific inquiry. Interpretivists, on the other hand, may prefer the insight and validity that they gain from methods where they are finding out about people's first-hand experiences of events and interactions. Finally, there is the issue of representativeness. Large-scale research preferred by positivists is seen as more representative, that is, assuming that a representative sample is used. This is desirable as it allows the findings to be applied to other areas of the population. Conversely, interpretivists are less concerned about representativeness to wider society, and more concerned with the ability to interpret and understand the viewpoints of individuals in society. As you can see, there are many different practical, ethical and theoretical factors to consider when conducting research, but the critical sociologist Gouldner suggested that the biggest influence was neither practical, ethical nor theoretical, but rather the demands of the funding bodies, and perhaps that is the greatest concern for all sociological researchers. That concludes this Tutor to You Sociology topic video on theory and methods, looking at practical, ethical and theoretical issues in research. Thanks for watching.